Sure.
My name is Mary Rose. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and thank you for all to celebrate Rockford Public Library's 150th birthday. And the man we have to thank for Rockford being 150 years is Elias Casper. But I did not know this until his great-great-grandson, Doug Cosper, brought Elias's Civil War pistol to Veterans Memorial Hall in Rockford in 2019. And the director at Memorial Hall said, you know, I know Elias Casper was somebody. Would you do a little research and figure out who he was? So Elias was born near Worcester, Ohio in 1824. He apprenticed as a watchmaker. He was apprenticed for 6 years. He got married. He brought his young family to Chicago in 1851. He was in partnership with a gentleman named Spear, who was a silversmith, and it was Spear and Cosper on Lake Street in Chicago for 3 years. And in 1854, John Holland, who lived in Rockford, was visiting in Chicago, recognized the Cosper name from his hometown in Worcester, Ohio, walked in, saw Elias, and said, Elias, you have to come out to Rockford. Rockford is an up-and-coming place, and we need you here. So he came. And John Holland said, walk across Kent Creek because that house is for sale. And Elias Casper bought a home from Reverend Lansing Porter on the property today that we all recognize as property of Tinker Swiss Cottage. The house that Elias purchased probably is under the footprint of where the Nelson Knitting buildings are today, but Tinker bought his property from Elias Cosper. When Elias came, he worked at the Robertson and Coleman Bank, and surprise, surprise, John A. Holland had been a member of that bank previous to Robertson and Coleman. It was Robertson and Holland. Elias became a teller and later a cashier at the bank. When the Civil War began, Elias joined the 74th Illinois Volunteer Infantry. He was commissioned as a first lieutenant. He became captain of Company E on the very first day when they went to Camp Fuller for training, because everybody got moved up a bit. They left for Kentucky on September 28th. And by November, Elias became a first assistant provost marshal general, which meant he was riding around perimeters of battles looking for deserters and arresting spies. And a year later, in 1863, Elias became a first additional paymaster, which means he was bringing pay to different units, and he was promoted. You had to be a major to be a paymaster. When he returned to Rockford in 1866, he had already sold his home at that point. He was living in a different home. In 1866, he invested in the J.P. Manny Reaper Company. He was in that for about 6 years. In 1868, he bought property on the other side of the river. He bought 47 acres. He built a Victorian Gothic home that still stands at 1121 Cosper Place. It sits on an acre. Go look at it. But Elias owned from Prospect to the river, from Ethel to Greenmount. Later, that property was sold and became Knightsville because B.A. Knight bought the property. In 1875, Elias and some investors started the Rockford Tack Company. The Rockford Tack Company was very profitable for its time. At one point, the Rockford Tack Company stock was stronger than,
Government bonds.
thank you, government bonds. Thank you. Thank you. Elias was a tremendous reader, believed in books. His personal library had 1,300 books in it. He belonged to a group in Rockford called the Young Men's Association, not the YMCA. They opened a reading room. So you had to be a member to be able to use the reading room. That meant you could go there, read the newspaper, read any books that were there, but you could not take them out. That ended after the Civil War. They auctioned off the books in 1867. Robert Tinker bought a lot of those books. Fast forward the Chicago Fire, October of 1871. During the Chicago Fire, there was no public library in Chicago. The Chicago Fire, they estimate 2 million books were burned in the fire in private collections and reading rooms. So they petitioned the governor of the state of Illinois to enact the Library Act, which was signed into law in May of 1872. And at that point, Elias started petitions in Rockford. Now that the Library Act allowed communities in the state to levy a tax to start a public library, Elias wanted a library here. And he went around town with his petition till he got enough signatures. Then he went to the mayor. The mayor signed an ordinance that yes, Rockford could levy a tax and start a library district. Then Elias went around town collecting money. He collected nearly $2,000. Remember, this is 1872, when the dollar was worth a whole lot less. And then August 1st of 1872, the Rockford Public Library opened in what was known as the Wallet Block, which was on the corner of State and Main, where the Convention and Visitors Bureau sat. It had another location, and then it moved to this building, which is where Luther Center is today, just on the west side of the river, right by the State Street Bridge. It was in that building. Then later, Elias Cosper passed away in 1900. Before he passed, he had been the first president of the library board in 1872, and he remained on the library board for 20 years. In his lifetime, he had held a position on the board the longest. Unfortunately, he did not get to live long enough to see the Carnegie Library. It was built in 1903. But tonight, I am honored to introduce to you his great-great-grandson, who wrote what I think is an amazing little book about wonder, and Doug's daughter, Anna, who did all the illustrating for the book. So let's please welcome Doug and Anna up here. Thank you.
Don't go away just yet.
We need you just a second.
I'll hold Elias.
Mary Rose sort of did the same thing that this guy in Chicago did for Elias. He said, you guys have to come out here. Several times over 3 years. And here we are. But we've become fast friends, and I frankly never heard of my great-great-grandfather. I knew I had this really cool
He
gun.
looks a lot like
Yeah, he does.
Except without color.
Yeah. Well, my dad has color.
I had this cool gun, and my daughters didn't want it. So I thought, well, this needs to go back to wherever he's from. And I didn't even know where that was. So I looked at his obit and called the library here. And Murray's staff advised me that maybe the Memorial Hall would like to have it. So I'm very delighted that they have it now. And this is all because of Mary Rose. She's also my greatest fan for On Wings of Wonder. by far.
Greatest.
And Mary Rose, we have something for you. You can't eat it.
You can't. Oh my God.
Let it hereby be known, in recognition of her determination to discover and illuminate the life of Elias Cosper, Major in the Army of the Cumberland and father of the Rockford Public Library, the great-great-grandson and great-great-great-granddaughters of Elias, with gratitude and respect, hereby grant Mary Rose Phillip honorary membership in the family Well deserved. It also makes you responsible for part of the family debt.
True.
Yeah.
And fortune.
And fortune.
Yeah.
Now it's yours. Okay.
You sit on the table here or behind it?
Behind, what, behind what? No.
Why would you sit on top of it?
Why would I sit on top of it?
Don't encourage her.
It feels great. Here,
I will
I'll
do
just sit
it.
it.
Okay.
I do have ADHD. I will do it.
And proud of it.
Yeah.
Girl. Well, can I just, the teacher in me feels like I should tell you guys a little bit, just our plan for the evening now is to kind of talk about the book for a second, read some excerpts from it, and then we'll have a Q&A if anybody has questions or comments, and then I have a little art activity over there for everybody, all ages, that we'll do at the end. So that's what's ahead.
And if you have books, we'd be both of us delighted to sign it. You've been shooting. And we have a few books that we can pass on to you if you'd like to try, if you'd like to read them.
Yes, and the library also has one.
The library has some.
Are they all the same cover?
Yes.
No matter what copy you get?
Good question.
Interesting question.
Because Charlie and the Chocolate Factory had different copies.
Is that right?
Well, maybe 20 years from now, when they've made movies of our book and everything.
Yeah.
Then we'll have different covers.
It's their turn to
Yeah, we both do it. One of the reasons Anna and I are sitting here together is we've been collaborating on this story, honestly, since Anna and her sister Pippa were still at the age of being read to. I would tell them stories at night about this fantastical creature named Flinder, who was a giant blue butterfly. This all happened in Holland because we used to live in Holland. And a little boy named Case, and they would travel to amazing countries and discover silly, crazy foods like
Well, I remember the eyeball soup, so there,
eyeball
but
Eyeball.
was that a real thing? That's actually in the back of this book. I was like, I haven't asked him about the eyeball soup, so this is a public moment for me asking if that was real.
I've never had
Put me on the
eyeball
spot.
soup.
Okay, I thought so. The things in the book are real that they eat and try. So
Yeah,
that's
everything in the
why-
book is geographically and culturally accurate. I spent about 15 years traveling to some of the most exotic places in the world, teaching journalists how to practice journalism properly, I hope. So, and the book takes place in our little village in Nederland, Colorado. It starts out, but it moves to Cambodia.
A nice map.
Yeah. I want to do a map.
Do a map. Everybody likes a map. You
Okay.
can see where they went.
And we spent a lot of time in the ancient ruins of Angkor Wat of Cambodia. And then we move over to Burma, also known as Myanmar, and the ancient kingdom there of Bagan. And Anna and I both spent a good deal of time in Burma before, you know, what happened. Pretty tragic right now. And then they fly, they pass through India and on to Botswana, where I was also a teacher, and Anna visited, and Carol visited. Oh, this is my wife, Carol, by the way. She's here to provide more support. So anyway, it's all of those places. The book was written for middle grade students, middle grade kids, and you know, one of the ideas was to expose them to these exotic places and cultures, and maybe tempt them to travel when they grow up, because travel is where it's at.
And I think that was your secret plan with the bedtime stories.
Yeah.
I think that's how it started. So the bedtime stories happened, and then it grew. Then I went to school for illustration, so then it kind of grew into a bigger and bigger project. Into what it is now.
Did it ever.
And now it's epic. It's like it's an epic adventure story.
It's true, and at its base, it's about wonder, a child's sense of wonder, which we all tend to take for granted. One of the scenes in the book has Case when he's just a little toddler, toddling up to a dandelion with a little blue butterfly on it, and he sat there and he watched this as long as it remained, minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes. And the thought is that if you could capture that moment, capture that power of a child's wonder, and bring it to force in the world, everything would change. For example, do you think Vladimir Putin, if he had a sense of wonder, do you think he'd be attacking Ukraine right now? If, yeah.
Here, this is the passage.
Can you hear me back there? Really?
Wow, amazing.
Okay, cool. There's some seats up here.
I think good segue. We can just read the segue that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you should, how about just a brief character?
Yeah.
So, she's the main character of the book is a little 12-year-old boy named Case. These names, Case and Flinder, are from the Dutch, because Anna's mother is Dutch, and we lived there for a while. So the main character, Case, he works for his grandfather's carousel. This old man carved every single wooden animal in this carousel, and we built an old carousel. And it's the family business. And we actually have a carousel in Netherland, Colorado, that my friend did carve. So that's where that comes from. So, but Case's mother is missing. Case's mother has she's a lepidopterist. You know what a lepidopterist is? You do.
Yes, you do.
You
It's a
seem like
butterfly.
someone who would know.
You seem like someone who would, a butterfly scientist.
Oh.
And she went off on a mission and never returned, and Case is desperate to find her, so he wants to set out to find her. And the first character, Flinder, is this member of a race of giant blue butterflies, and they go out together to search for her. And the first character they come upon, and that's the one that's in this passage, is a girl named Mira. Does anybody know who the Rohingya are? Rohingya? They're a class of people in Myanmar that are much hated by most of the Burmese, and the army conducted a series of very violent purges and massacres on Rohingya villages and forced them all into Bangladesh. It's the largest refugee camp in the world now, is a Rohingya camp in Bangladesh. And this little girl named Mira lost her family and lost her sense of wonder. And she also has a giant blue butterfly that is trying to restore her wonder. So here we have Case and Mira and two butterflies set off on this search for Case's mother, but what they're actually doing is learning to enhance their wonder and make it stronger. In fact, make it strong enough to fight wonder victories. So, I'm not sure where they are here. I know where I am, but where are they?
Where are we?
Oh, they're in a clearing somewhere. I think this is like, one of their stops.
This is outside, yeah, this is in Cambodia.
They're just camping.
Right, they're just hanging out. Mira is her name. Mira, by the way, is it's a Latin derivative of the word miracle or wonder. Mira nestled into the grass where she sat. Come much of this does she know, Case wondered. He gathered 2 clumps of grass in his hands as if he were sitting on Flinder's neck. Moonlight glistened on the great butterfly's wing scales. His antenna stood straight up in thinking mood. Perhaps it's best to begin with why this battle will be fought in the first place. It's over wonder, right? Said Case. Mira rolled her eyes and glanced at Sebastian, which was the name of her butterfly, whose antenna sagged. Yes, it's over wonder. I don't understand. I get that wonder is important and all, but why fight over it? Case, Linda paused. What would you say if I told you that wonder is the most powerful force in the world? Mira's back straight. At least she doesn't get this part either, Case thought. I'd say you must be a little nuts. Wonder isn't powerful. It's just something people do when they don't have anything else to do. It doesn't do anything. Armies are powerful. So most people believe, Flinder said, but everything good in the world begins the moment a child wonders about something. Case shook his head. I don't understand any of this, why it has anything to do with power. Shut up, boy, Mira snapped. Let him finish. Mira's a little tightly wound after the massacre. You see, Flinder continued, when a child senses something that touches the wonder in him, he becomes curious. And if this wonder is strong enough, he will explore this new thing. Nothing can keep him from it. If he is a good explorer, he will discover new truths about it. He will learn, and his imagination will soar. But most important, he will learn to discover new mysteries to explore that he never could have imagined before. Like the village on stilts? Exactly like that. And unless the wonder eaters find him distracted by some nonsense and suck the wonder out of him, he will continue to wonder all his life. This is how a child grows. This is how civilization grows. Wonder is what took mankind to the moon. So you see, the most delicate thing in the world is also the most powerful. More powerful even than armies. Case heard Gramsci's words come back to him. Guard your wonder. Started to make sense. The curiosity of children and their desire to ask questions and to learn, this is the key to the survival of all humanity, Sebastian said. And we are here to protect it and help it grow. Mira gazed silently into the green grass in front of her. So, pardon me, that's sort of the basics of the philosophy of wonder.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Don't have to get served.
Yeah. I am going to read. Just
By the way, if you have questions after each one of these readings, just bring them on.
I'm just going to read a part of the book that I like. So this is a good little bit further when they've been doing all of this clue searching and finding in Asia, and now they're on their way to Botswana, and they're looking for a place to overnight on their way. So they're up in the air right now on their butterflies. Case unfolded his map of Asia and focused on central India. There's a national park coming up ahead. It's pretty big with forest. Ever heard of Pench National Park? Never have, but any secluded clearing will be most welcome. There, to port. There's the forest. Case had learned the terms port and starboard from reading Moby Dick, but he never dreamed he'd have a chance to use them. Flinder motioned with a wing to Sebastian, and the 2 butterflies began their descent to a small hilltop clearing. The instant their feet touched the ground, the keepers folded their wings and dropped their heads in exhaustion. Why don't Case and I look for dinner tonight? Mira said. Yeah, you guys take 5, said Case. Sebastian lifted his head. Take 5 what? Just rest. We'll be back. Be careful in the forest. As crowded as it is, India still has plenty of dangerous wildlife, Flinder said. Case, there's a trail leading down the hill toward a mango grove, Mira said. Let's go. It's not much of a trail, a game trail maybe, but better than nothing. Mira led the way down the hillside. Hope it's mango season here, she said. I'm starving. Yeah, Case paused. Mira, are you okay? I mean, after what we saw this morning, the camp? I have family and friends in that filthy camp, Mira barked. I would be there now if not for Sebastian. No, I am not okay. But I'll find a way to help them if I can, after this battle has been won. I'll help you if you'll let me. A twig snapped sharp and loud in the thick forest ahead. What was that? Case whispered. Sounds like something big, said Mira, her hand rising to the handle of her knife. She keeps a knife in her sash belt. Yeah, who doesn't? Then they heard it, a deep, guttural sound that told them they should run. The tiger eased out of the bush in a crouch about 20 feet in front of them, snarling, tail twitching, blocking the trail. It locked its eyes on Case. He was at once held in awe by the creature's majesty, and aware that he and Mira stood no chance against it. Its shoulders stood to Case's chest. Its canine teeth were almost as long as Mira's blade. With instinct to match the tiger's, Mira crouched, her knife held high like a dagger. To the call of some undiscovered instinct of his own, Case stepped in front of her. What are you doing? She demanded. Not sure. Case was aware of nothing beyond the creature's yellow eyes focused on his. Don't look it in the eye, Mira whispered. Back away slowly. Case felt wonder gather in his chest. For support, he supposed. He was transfixed by the dare of the moment, thus unafraid. Calmly, he spread his arms low, palms facing the tiger, as if in a gesture of peace. He took a cautious step toward it. Case, are you crazy? Don't! Mira pinched his shirt to pull him back. He took another step in slow motion, planting his heel carefully in the dirt and shifting weight to his toe. The tiger roared and crouched lower to pounce. Steady, no sudden movements, Case told himself. Another step. Case and the tiger were within spitting distance now. Another. Mira stayed close to him, ready to salvage the situation if she could. Another. The tiger clawed the earth furiously with both paws, sending clouds of dust across the path. It snarled madly. Case could feel the force of its breath and count its whiskers. Another. Suddenly, the creature stood upright. Case thought he saw it shake its head as if in confusion. Abruptly, it turned and pranced away into the wood. As if awakened from a trance, Case collapsed to the ground. Mira was on him in an instant. Are you out of your mind? You could have gotten us both killed. That's exactly what you're not supposed to do with the tiger. Case sat numbly, silent. Case, are you okay? I guess so. I'm hungry. Let's find some food. We'll discuss this later, Mira said firmly. The two came upon a dirt road crossing the trail to the mango grove. A park sign was posted nearby. Mira read, Hence Tiger Reserve, and turned to Case. Nice work, Columbus. Case stared at the sign. Wow, but the map didn't say anything about tigers.
Yeah.
Get a feel for the style of the book. You know, it's written for middle grade level, but Mary Rose Wright likes it. How about I just read one more?
Yeah.
And then
I think that's good.
Yeah. So the third 12-year-old character in this book is a young man named Toma. He is what the book calls a guardian. Guardian of the chrysolite. And all of the wonder, the reservoir of wonder on earth is hidden in something called the cave of the chrysolite. And that's where Case's mother is as well. So the two butterflies and Case and Mira are descending upon this cave. And there's going to be a big battle the next day. And Toma, who is a bushman, I know that sounds like an inappropriate term, but that's what they prefer to be called. They're also called the Sand People. They are the oldest people on the planet. People believe scientists have done genetic testing, and almost all of us have Bushman blood because they were the first people in southern Africa. But they fell on hard times, putting it lightly. The Bushmen were very much like animals. They lived like animals, very simply. Let me finish. They hunted. Their social order was very simple. They knew how to live on the land, which is hard to do in the Kalahari Desert. And because they appeared, that the black Africans who moved down south into the continent, they perceived of them as animals because their lifestyle was so basic. Is that right? We'll talk about it. But so they were treated as animals, and they were enslaved and massacred, and mostly enslaved by the Bantu. And then, if that's not bad enough, the white sailors from Holland and England came from the south, also treated them the same way. And with the white folks, it wasn't just enslavement, they actually hunted Bushmen for sport and hung them for trees. So it's this young man, Toma, is descended from that great race. And he's one of very few who are left living in the old ways at this cave of the Chrysolite. And today, incidentally, no Bushmen live that way. So, Case Toma has brought Case and Mira into a dark place. They went through an entrance to what looked like a cave. The three stood in silence, appreciating absolute darkness. Case was uncertain whether his eyes were open at all. They reached out for light, but they found none. Wow, he said. Wow, said Mira. When the first light arrived, Case thought he was imagining it. It came like a yellow lantern, far away at about eye level, sunrise. Then another lantern above it, brighter. In a minute's time, the line of lanterns transformed into a vertical slice of light, shining from the cavern wall. His eyes began to adjust. He looked down. They were standing on an elevated path about 3 feet wide that dropped off into blackness on both sides. There was just enough light for Case to begin feeling the pinprick fear of falling. Then, the next instant, light streamed into the cavern. Case, look, said Mira. Her gaze was directed up toward the roof of the cave. His eyes still adjusting, Case saw that the cavern extended farther than he could see in the limited light. Then he looked up. The cave ceiling was studded with long, sharp objects. Stalactites? Look closer, said Toma. Case followed on a cluster of the things. Case focused on a cluster. See what I mean? My head. Case focused on a cluster of the things nearest to him. As the light grew brighter and his eyes caught up with it, what he saw took his breath away. Oh, he said, not aware that he was even speaking. The objects were about twice his length in height. They were hanging from something like apple stems from the stone ceiling. And most wondrous of all, they were blue. Chrysolite, he whispered to himself. Thousands and thousands of giant chrysolite. This is all there are, Toma said softly. And so far as anyone knows, all there will ever be. If Case had understood theoretically why he was here, the sight gave him a visceral knowledge of it. He was here to protect these wondrous, delicate, defenseless creatures from the mindless talons and ravenous proboscis of the destroyer circling outside the cave. The thought of what defeat might look like was too much for him to bear. He reached over and found Mira's hand. she squeezed his. If there was ever to be a more magical moment in his life, he could not imagine it. And he and Mira understood why Toma could not hate his oppressors. That's probably enough of that.
Yeah, so if anybody has questions or
Has anybody read the book?
thoughts for us.
Super. Thank you.
Yay.
You guys have any questions at all that you didn't understand as you were reading it? Yeah. How long to write it? Well, if you start back when I was reading stories to my baby daughters, about 40 years. But it did develop through, just a second, buddy. It did develop through several iterations, but on this book, probably about a year and a half. I would say then Anna did the illustrations, which took quite a bit of time as well. Yes, sir.
How long did it take to draw the picture?
I think I took about 3 months to do the inside pictures. There's a picture for every chapter. Well, so there's some big pictures in the front here, and then there's little pictures for every chapter just to give you a taste of where you are.
Showing bad guys.
Well, I don't know if I can find them so quickly. The other ones are hiding in the book.
They're dark on the edge.
They're on the cover. They're right there.
Oh, well, that's not really what I meant.
It's a cool one though. It's a cool one. So I think there are something like 40 illustrations total, and it took me about 3 months, and the cover took me about 2 weeks ultimately, because there were a lot of revisions happening. Yeah, good question. Thank you.
I have a question. So, reading through the book, how many of the stories that you heard as a child were recognizable? Like, oh, I remember this story, or this is part of.
Oh, these are completely new ones because they used to be like little vignettes kind of, and they would go to a different country each time and just experience all of these really wild things. And now they go to different countries and experience wild things, but they're all real and they're all connected with a larger plot line. So the characters are the recognizable part, and I think that the essence of discovery is which is the most, for me, that's the most important part. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
The characters I'm sorry, I got here late afterwards. The characters a compilation of different people are totally out of your imagination.
You know, they're representatives of their culture and of their race. So, for instance, Mira, the Rohingya girl, I took her. She is a compilation of victims of Rohingya massacres that I drew from the New York Times, and everything that happened to her happened to another little girl. And I tried not to be too graphic, but I think middle grade students need to know a little bit about the world they're about to go into. And the little Toma, the Bushman boy, he's a compilation of every little Bushman boy that ever lived.
Well,
As far as I
you
know.
didn't know very many of those.
Not personally, but I did a lot of research.
Yeah. But he's cool. He speaks a lot of languages, Toma does.
Yeah.
So what was, I mean, I also got here a little late, but all the research that went into the book, obviously this is a lifetime of experiences that led you to this. So I guess I have two questions. One is, what kind of research did you do? And were you in Africa, or were you just studying from here? And then my second question is, with all of this information, what was the moment that you decided, I'm going to write a book about it?
Well, the second was hard. First one's easy. I've been a newspaper reporter and foreign correspondent for most of my career, and I was lucky enough at the last 13, 15 years of my career, I traveled to all of these countries and many, many more. Some of them pretty rough places, South Sudan during the wartime.
And you lived there for a chunk. You didn't.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
were there for a while.
I was there usually for 6 to 9 months. And I was working with journalists in the country trying to train them to not just report what their sources wanted to hear, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
So I had a pretty good feeling for all of the cultures in these countries. But I didn't have enough to write the book, so I had to do quite a lot of research. And I always knew I was going to do this. There wasn't a moment. I always knew.
I mean, I can remember years ago, before he started writing this one, we were in Botswana together collecting information for the book. So, yeah,
Yeah.
for the book that it would become,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
I love your hat.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Have you been to every continent other than the poles?
other than,
Other than the poles? Like the Arctic?
what makes you think I haven't been to the poles?
Beer's not long enough.
I have never been to the poles.
We knew it.
Yes, I have. I have a website, dougcosper.com, if you want to check that out. But probably better than that, there's a website for the book. It's called
On
On-
Wings of Wonder.
It's in the back of the book.
Yeah, it's in the back of the book. Thank you.
onwingsofwonder.com. And there's a lot more information, for instance, about the Bushman people, the Sand people, a lot more stuff back there. If you're curious about some of these places, especially Angkor Wat, and there's a story about one of the settings is the lost library of Bagan, but it's another word. It's okay. It's been a long time. But there's a story behind how this library was founded. It's a tale of the conquest of another tribal king in Burma centuries ago, and the theft of 30 golden chests containing the scrolls of the Buddha, and they were hidden away in this lost library in this ancient city of Bagan. We found it.
Well, we found the library.
Well, and we found it because there was a sign right in front of it. But we went there and we went inside, and every single detail of that scene is accurate,
Very cool.
except that we didn't see the golden chest.
Don't give that
That
away.
would have been a turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
didn't tell about my favorite character, the little monk.
Oh.
You didn't tell about my favorite character, the little monk.
Yeah, he
Oh,
was in our
Korean, yeah.
excerpts.
You like Korean, you too.
Okay. Yeah, so Koyan is a novice monk, so he's most boys in Southeast Asia spend some time in a monastery, at least a couple months if they're very restless, but sometimes up to years. And Koyan is a more dedicated student who has been there for a long time, and he's very curious.
He's there because his parents were killed in a cyclone, which actually happened. A lot of kids, their parents were killed in a cyclone, and the monks take them in.
Yeah. Yeah, and he finds Case and Mira because he's curious and ends up being friends with them and guiding them around.
But the cool part about the little monk, when Anna and I were together in Burma, we had the name of a very famous, respected, honored monk. And he ran his own monastery in a place called Sagaing. And we went there and we found him. And we interviewed him about what it was like. He was a little novice monk once, and now he's a world famous monk. We interviewed him about what it was like to be a little monk, and remember all the stuff about this daily schedule of the monk. They never have time to play. They're not allowed to play, and they go out with their arms. That's all directly from this old revered monk, and all that is quite real. This guy, by the way, had like 3-color television, so blew me away. Yeah.
Did you explain how Flinder and Case got their name?
Well, Flinder means, once again, the original story took place in Holland. And Flinder is the Dutch word for butterfly. I just love the sound of Flinder. Love it. And Case, how do you spell Case in Dutch?
K-E-E-S.
K-E-E-S. And I also like that name a lot. It's not a common name here. And, you know, these decisions were made as I was sitting on the bedside coming up with these stories, so.
Case is just kind of a typical, it's like Chris or Ryan, you know,
Yeah.
Case. But it's cool in English, he spells it C-A-S-E, because it's kind of like, you know, he's on the case. Yeah, it worked out. Oh, the gentleman in the plaid shirt has had his, it's been trying to signal.
What kind of soup or foods did you have other than eyeball soup?
Ugh, that's a good question. Well, in Cambodia, of course, crickets are delicious. Everybody's had crickets, right?
Sure.
They're delicious. They're like bar food.
Oh.
They are the new bar food, actually.
Yeah.
That's actually happening.
I used to think that was pretty exotic, but then we're driving down the road one day with a bunch of students, and we pull over, and there's this lady, she looked Vietnamese to me, but she was Cambodian, I guess, and she had tarantulas crawling all over her. All over her.
Oh, hell.
And
They were bird spiders.
Oh,
weren't
hell
they?
no.
they looked like tarantulas to me.
Well,
I don't know. I didn't check their genetics, but they're big friggin' hairy spiders.
If you have some number of food, they're bird spiders.
And they barbecue them in this sweet barbecue sauce, and they're pretty good.
Oh.
I couldn't do the abdomen though,
Yeah.
the big squishy thing.
Yeah, we each have
I
legs.
couldn't do the squishy part. But we've had
Snake, cockroaches.
river snake, cockroaches.
Bunch of different bugs. So many different bugs.
Yeah, bugs are good, really good. Oh, and there's a worm in Botswana called the
Mopani worm.
honey worm.
I have a picture of those.
Yeah.
I like to draw
Anyway,
the dead
they're little caterpillars, and they grow on mopani trees. And you have to, they're like cleaning fish. You have to pull little spines off of them and skin them and all this stuff. But then you fry them up. Oh my God, they're so good. They're so good. They're on the dollar bill, or the pula bill. The money is pula. In Botswana, they're on the pula, one pula bill. Pula means rain, and that's what they call their money. Cool. Cool. Yeah.
Well, I do have a picture of a dick on a stick, which is really hard to see for you guys. It's tiny, but roasted dick. It's a small antelope like this. I have not eaten that, but the characters eat it. And you've had sheep's ankle soup, which to me sounds
Oh, God,
that's perfect case of Flinder food, but it's not in here.
Yeah, that was in Azerbaijan. It's the national.
Those or no?
Yeah, thank you. There they are.
The
Thank you.
Azeris love boiled sheep ankles, and I don't get it. There's so much gluey stuff in there, you can't open your mouth. You get these.
Just a jumble.
As soon as you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know that.
Yeah. So good.
That's a good question. That's part of the fun of travel.
Yes.
Is to overcome that. Oh, I'm not going to do that and do it.
Somehow they got the water in the desert. I thought that was so fascinating.
That's
Yeah, that was beautiful. Yeah.
that's a fact. Yeah, the Bushmen, they can live in the desert where nobody else can live, and the way Toma got water, which was researched very well, he knew where there was a bush. I mean, there's a million bushes in the Kalahari Desert. He knew where there was a bush, and he took Case and Mira to the bush, and he got down on his hands and knees and started digging, and dug down about 2 feet until the sand started to be a little moist. And then he has a straw in his quiver. He's got a quiver of arrows, but he's also got a straw back there he uses that straw to play music on his bow when he's not hunting with it. But it's also hollow. So he laid down he put grass around the end of the straw, tied it, and stuck it down into the sand, and started sucking through this straw, sucking, and finally, out comes water. And this is how they did it. And then they would take the water and spit it into an empty ostrich egg, which is a great canteen. And they fill up enough eggs to get them to the next water hole, or not water hole, but water bush, I don't know. And that's exactly how they did it.
Elijah, did you have a question? Oh, okay. It seemed like you were maybe asking something before the food question. Just check. Well, maybe we should do some art. What do you think?
Yeah, thank you ever so much.
This isn't really related to the book.
Don't
I'm
care.
just curious when you said earlier when you were talking about Elias,
Yeah.
how did your family not keep very many records of your genealogy, or when you said you never really knew about him?
There is a genealogy book that was lost when my parents died, and my sister and I hauled everything away. My sister just found it last week, laying in the back of a file cabinet, laying flat, behind the file cabinet. And yeah, we knew about Elias, and we had the basic genealogy. I'm very ashamed to say this in front of Mary Rose, but we're just not that family that needs to know everybody's history. But now we are. Now we're pretty excited about it. And my parents, my grandparents died early. All I remember about them is them telling me not to do this, not to do that. Just wasn't tuned in, but it is fascinating. Now that we have the book, we're going to. I haven't even seen it.
Okay.
My sister hasn't seen it. But yeah. What about you? Are you curious about your family like that?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I think it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. We can trace ours back to 1695,
Wow.
What
Yeah.
country?
Ireland and Scotland.
You're an Irish grandmother.
I do.
You know you can get Irish citizenship.
Really? I'm more Scottish than I am Irish, so that's probably because of the marriages as they went up,
If you have an Irish grandmother who came as an Irish grandmother,
Actually, it's my grandfather.
that'll work.
Okay.
If they came to this country and you are descendant from them, you can get an Irish passport.
Really?
And you can live in one of the coolest countries
Oh, yeah.
in the world.
It's my dream to get over there.
So look into it.
Okay.
Well, we were just learning about all of the catalogs that the library has and all of the microfilms that you can access, which would be, if I lived here, that would be super cool. I don't think my town has all those microfilms, but there's it's part of the exhibit a little bit, is how to look in your genealogy over there.
So, Doug has put together a list of what we have available in our archives. He's worked tirelessly in our lower level, and he's been putting all of the collection together so that it makes sense. So if you're interested in architecture or buildings or industry, you'll go ahead and look at Title Up. And what's great is you may be looking for the Rockford Chat Company, but when you bring up the box, you're probably going to have maybe another 50 documents on businesses that were in the watercolor district. So I think in local history, what I've found since being at the library is you don't always know what you're looking for. And you may just come across something that's even more fascinating than what you had originally thought was going to be. You're missing a piece. It might just bring you down another rabbit hole because you found something else out. And that's the most fun. And it's really fun working with people in town that are researching their homes or doing their genealogy groups is you can search it anywhere in the world, and it's going to allow anybody to see it, as opposed to being a member of a group. It's really fantastic, and I think that it's only just begun. You know, we hit million views mark sometime last year, which was a really big deal for us, and yeah, we're just going to keep adding more and getting all the stories. And I see people in the audience that are working on their own as well.
Actually, I want to say that I was here the day that you called to say that you had the gun. And
Yeah.
what did you want to do?
Oh, is that right?
I was here that day and I was listening to the conversation.
Did you do a great job or what?
And then they referred you to the Midway Village. I mean, that was pre-COVID, I believe.
Well, I ended up at the
Yeah.
right place.
Yes.
Yeah, you gave me also the name of a reenactment group or something. That didn't sound
It
right.
wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'm
Oh.
just a patron here. Like, I'm a history nerd. So
Oh.
I was listening to the conversation and
No kidding.
you calling on, I have this gun and I want to donate it, and they didn't know what to do, and then they sent you over there.
Oh, thank
I
you
think
so
it's
much.
kind of cool that it's like full circle. I heard that conversation.
Yeah. Go over and say hi to the pistol.
No, say hi to
Yeah, it's a cool exhibit, actually. At the Veterans Memorial Hall, right? Is
Yeah.
where it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so,
Wait.
oh.
We have, if anyone would like bookmarks, we have lots of bookmarks. You're welcome to have those. And if you would like to buy a book, we have a few. But most importantly, how many do you have in the library? One, two?
We actually have 3 circulating copies.
Great.
And we also have one that we will keep in our registry that,
So it's available for checkout, and if you have books, I'd love to sign them. And thank you very much for reading. And Anna?
Yeah, so the art portion of it, the most inspiring thing about this book to me is just celebrating that sense of awe and wonder that you feel all the time in the world, hopefully, if you're looking for it. So I've titled the piece over there, What Makes You Feel Wonder? And the idea is that we're all illustrators now, and we're all going to draw a picture of however many things you want to, but hopefully at least one, something that makes you feel wonder inside. And also right next to it, because as my example, I did bioluminescence, which is a ridiculous thing to draw. So I wrote underneath it, bioluminescence. Because illustration is the art of illustration. It always goes with an idea. The root of it is what? I should know the Latin part, but the illustre part of illustration is that it brings light to a thought or idea. It doesn't have to be words, it's usually words, but so it would be great if there was a drawing and the words underneath it to make it a true illustration. Yeah, and there are plenty of colors and markers over there, and it can be upside down or all around. It doesn't have to be placed neatly. Yeah. So go to, I'm gonna go over there too and draw some more things. Bookmarks are here, books are here. You wanna?
I just want to add something really quick. If you haven't had a chance, you have a file cap or a display case up front, and it has the book that Elias Casper donated to the library. It's our oldest book in our collection.
Good for you.
$15.99. Doug, myself, and Mary Rose.
What do you think so far?
At least 1928.
Well, there's
And also there's
in the world.
the ledger.
So what's your name?
that Elias Cosper, Secretary of the Library Board in 1872, and there's 25 years of information out. There's a lot of cool stuff and his. Excuse us. Well, we got